Good afternoon. Happy Tuesday. Hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to another session of Nail School. All right, today we're going to be learning acrylic nails, and I'm going to be working with the Young Nails traditional system. We're going to be going over all aspects: preparation, application, and finishing. But before we start, I want to make sure that you guys have the right equipment. I have my Greg Salo Master Series brush, the Signature Series, which is the number 12. We have the right dish. I'm going to be working with Cover Pink and the liquid. So what I want to be able to do when I'm dispensing liquid inside my dish, if I'm holding the bottle up to the ferrule, you're going to notice that I'm going to be able to dispense the liquid inside my dampened dish without spilling down the side of the bottle if I keep connection. That way you don't have to worry about trying to pour it in and it's spilling all over the place. I'm going to leave my brush inside here so it stays nice and clean. But before we actually get into application, let's go ahead and prepare the surface so that you guys have a really good understanding of what we're going to do. We're going to be working with a medium arbor band. I want to make sure that we push the cuticles back. Good thing is the practice hand is already prepped and ready to go. I'm going to be working at a really low speed. So it's really important that you understand the type of pressure that you're going to be using has to be gentle, right? I'm not going to be aggressive. I'm going to show you guys the underside of my wrist right here. I'm just going to lightly tickle. That's the same type of pressure that I'm going to be working with when I'm removing shine around the perimeter of the nail. And I like to do this in stages. I'm going to go around the cuticle area first, right? Just to remove shine around the perimeter. And then I'm going to be using a light kind of feathering motion. So you can see I'm resting the handpiece in the crease of my hand like I'm writing, right? This is going to give me full balance and allow me to tickle away the shine on the surface of the natural nail, right? So if I'm coming down and lightly feathering away, putting very, very gentle pressure, I'm able to remove the shine, not just thoroughly, I'm able to do it efficiently as well, right? We have to remove the shine completely through the nail. For those of you guys that are in school and have learned to use a hand file in this direction, not only it takes too long, but you're not going to do it thorough enough, right? So, and you have to deal with the sharp edges of a file. If you're using something, again, look at this. So putting a lot of pressure, it stops. I just want to be able to run it at a very gentle speed. You can see on my electric file, I'm running it at 3,000 RPMs, a very, very gentle speed so that I can effectively remove shine, right? And I'm not going to be doing this. I want to show you guys something. I'm not going to hold the hand like this and go side to side. This does nothing, right? All this does is get your edge caught and it spins around the nail, right? So if I'm using this part of the arbor band, you're going to notice that I'm able to get around the perimeter and then lightly start feathering, and you can see I'm working diagonally. Start feathering the shine away from corner to corner. Tickle, 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 coochie, coochie, coo, all the way through. This is going to prepare the surface, right, so that there's no damage to the natural nail and you're able to create the right texture for the enhancement to bond to. Okay, so once that is done, we're going to be using swipe to clean the surface. So I'm going to use a manicure brush. I'm going to pump this. And what we're going to do is we're going to come through and we're going to just clean off the surface. This is going to lead to basically a nice dehydrated, clean surface, right, that you're going to be able to use protein bond. Okay, so once protein bond is on the nail, this is going to create the adhesion you need so that you don't get any lifting. I'm going to apply 2 coats. I'm going to apply a coat from cuticle to free edge, right? 1 coat. I like to do all 10 fingers, right, all the way through. And then once I'm done, I'm going to come back and I'm going to do a 2nd coat. Right, so this is prep. So this is the same prep that you're going to be using when you're using the extreme low odor. This is the same prep you're going to be using when you're doing hard gels. It's pretty much the same prep when you're going to be doing any type of enhancements on the nail. So this is prepped, ready to go. Now we're going to get into the second phase, which is now application. All right, so first thing, when we are working with any powder, you have to remember that we want to be able to, again, pick something up that's going to be able to come off the brush with ease. So this is just again, a plain finger. I haven't done any prep. I want to be able to show you guys, right? What we want is to be able to bounce inside the powder. Look at this. If I bounce inside the powder, I'm going to be able to pick up a bead that's going to be nice and fluffy and round on one side of the brush. If I was to take my brush and swivel it around the dish and bounce and then try to water ski across the surface, you're going to notice that I have these really dry edges. It's not consistent. It's not even. Another problem that a lot of beginners make, they take their brush and they pull the liquid off the side that they're going to be picking up. So if you take your brush and let's say you pull off a majority of the product off of the side that you're going to pick it up, right? Let's say that you just set it down into the surface hoping that something is going to pick up. Again, you're going to get something that's really, you can see almost all the dry flakes. And this is very, very difficult for me to get off my brush. We want a consistency where if you pull down and bounce, you would need very light pressure, watch this, for it to come off the brush without sticking, right? And you notice that everything is leveling. Acrylic needs oxygen to dry. It needs air to dry. We want to be able to put the bead in a position where everything levels, right? Levels naturally. You want to pick up a bead, and I want to be able to diagram this out. But if this was, again, let's say this was the nail right here. What we're trying to do when we lay the bead down on the back end, we're trying to create a natural, right? You want it to self-level towards the cuticle area so that there's no giant ledge on the back end. The biggest mistake that a lot of people do when they're setting to the cuticle area, they either get it really, really close to the back and the brush is in the front and it ends up smashing all the product towards this side of the cuticle area. Watch what happens, right? If I was to pick up a large bead, right? If I was to take a large bead and let's just say I pick this up and I'm not bouncing, right? And I set the product down to the front just like this and I pulled forward, it's going to create this mushroom effect on the back end and everything is going to run towards the sides instead of coming down towards the free edge. There's no chance of you building something that's going to be very easy to file and creating the right structure so the nail does not lift or break. We have to be able to keep the finger pointed down, right? So you'll notice if I'm holding the hand like this, if I'm holding it like this, notice the angle of my brush. It's straight. I'm not keeping my hand up like this, right? Or keeping it flat with the finger flat. I'm keeping the finger down, pointed towards the towel so that if I'm holding my brush, look at this, I'm resting it just like I'm writing, right, in the crease of my hand so that I can balance my fingers, I can attach it, and I don't shake. If you were holding your brush way back here and you were slapping at the product, it's very difficult for you to achieve a smooth, flawless application with balance. If I have the finger pointed down and I have connection, you're going to notice that when I set it down, I'm going to naturally create a beautiful, right, tight shape around the perimeter as the product starts moving down towards the free edge. Okay, so all the beginners out there that are learning this, what we want to be able to do, first of all, you have to successfully pick it up. Okay, so if I submerge my brush and I lightly tap, I have to make sure that I pull down with light pressure, but I bounce inside to get myself a nice fluffy bead. Now you're going to notice, I don't just set it down immediately. I wait a few seconds and then watch this. If I set this down and release it, do you see the space that it creates? Right here, let me just kind of zoom out so that you guys can see. Move this out of the way. I want to show you guys something. Do you see, look at that space. I want to show you guys all the way around the edge. That space, but take a look at this. If I'm looking at this from the side profile, do you notice that teardrop is moving this way? So the amount of product that I have around the perimeter of the nail is, again, a very, very shallow amount, so that all I have to do at this angle is just a light feather push as I'm working around the perimeter of the nail. Let me just go ahead and wipe this off before it sets. And I'm going to show you guys again before we actually get into doing this on a real nail. Okay, so if I submerge my brush, and I pull down and I bounce inside the powder, watch this. If I wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, release with that space. Watch this. If I have that, all I have to do is lightly kind of slide touch, slide touch, slide touch. So what I've been able to do is achieve perfection from this point all the way around to this point right here. I want to try to create as tight of a cuticle area without me having to worry about forcing it towards the back end of the nail. And as you can see, the product is running. At this point, if I decided to just kind of pull through the product, look at this, I'm not doing anything. If I decided I wanted to pull through to get an overlay, I know I have great consistency where everything I pull through is going to shape naturally towards the nail. Okay, so when we are doing any type of sculpture nail, you're not going to be working on a finger that's, say, this long. So let's just go ahead and kind of clip away some of the free edge, right? So let's just say that the finger has been kind of shortened out. And what we're trying to do is build a certain amount of length. Let me just go ahead and remove this. Okay, so what I like to do, I like to go ahead and get a form, right? Because we want to be able to try to create the tip that we're going to do the overlay on. If I take the form and I place the tab underneath, this is going to give me enough support so that when I actually pinch the nail form and create a handle, it creates a nice C-curve. This is going to allow me to open up the back end, right? And these arms, like if I open this up, you're going to notice, right, it's going to get wide. Now, since I'm working on a tip that actually has slight edge, there's two ways of applying it. You can hold the handle and come at an angle, right, just underneath. If this is wide enough, if you just kind of slide it underneath just like this, you can tilt this dead straight so that I'm actually able to secure the sides of the form here to the skin. And you're going to notice, right, it looks like, right, the line looks like it's kind of pointed up, but if you notice, the form is coming off the extension dead straight. That means my sidewalls, if I'm building my sidewalls, I'm going to have really, really straight edges. A lot of times when beginners are putting forms on, the mistake that they do is they don't use the tab, they don't use the sticky part. They end up throwing this away, and then what they end up doing is they kind of roll it, and then they come in at an angle, and then what they do is they go like this, and then they pinch the front, and then what you're left with is this really crooked shape with a lot of space on the front end, like you're going to build this beak, right? Even if you were to get it somewhat straight, if you don't open up the back end of the form, you don't have room to kind of clear the width of the knuckle. So what we're going to do, we're going to place this on the bottom. Make it easy for yourself. Pre-pinch the tip. Doesn't matter if you're using the salon forms or the extended nail forms. If you open this up and you kind of pinch it right there, you're going to have room to work. This is going to allow you, again, just to hold on. You can see I'm just holding on to the very bottom. I'm allowing this to stick to my finger. I'm coming in at a slight angle, and then I'm going to use my hand just to lightly tilt it up. right? So you can see once I have this on, right, the connection that you want it as flush to the front of the tip. Don't worry about the corners. For those of you guys that are wondering about odd shaped nails, we have a ton of videos. If you go to YouTube, you go to Young Nails on YouTube, you can see how to fit basically any shape that's out there. Okay, so for those of you guys that are working on the practice hand, my recommendation is to hold the form, hold it here so that it doesn't move. Now, what we want to be able to do is build a free edge that is like clay. Okay, so you don't want it running all over the place. If I was, and again, let me show you guys, if I was working on a surface, if I had a form and it was on the nail, let's go ahead and put it into a convex form, right? For those of you guys that are practicing, you just want to work with a form and you want to be able to build it. This is a great practice. Like, let's say that you picked up a bead and you were successfully able, right? Bounce, bounce, bounce. Make sure this is completely clipped on. And then you just set it down onto the nail. Watch what ends up happening. Do you see how it runs all over the place? That's going to be very, very hard for you to control. This is not only going to run off the form, if you try to attack it with your brush, it's going to end up getting jammed up in your brush, creating a nightmare of a situation. You want to be able to work with clay-like consistency. So in order to get clay-like consistency on the end of a form, this is what I like to do. Let's go ahead and pre-pinch this, create a nice convex surface to work with. If you submerge your brush, tap out your powder as well so it's nice and smooth. But if I go ahead and submerge my brush and I tap, if I pull down, bounce, 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 I have a nice bead loaded on one side of my brush. Watch this. If I set the brush on the back end just for a few seconds, when I go to the form to release, watch what ends up happening. It stays in place. It doesn't get away from me, right? It's a slow moving set so that even if I was to kind of slide it up, notice that I'm actually able to push it into place without it getting away from me. Notice that it's not moving at all. If I was to slide this up, walk it from the top, right? Even at this point here, I would be able to maneuver and manipulate the tip without basically it getting stuck, right? Or losing control while I'm working with the product. Completely different than the body. When you're working with the body, you want self-leveling so that it levels. And it doesn't matter whether you're working with your traditional, it doesn't matter whether you're working with the extreme low odor. They all have a consistency point that you have to master so that, you know, again, you're not working against the flow. You want to work with the flow. All right, so we have the form on the nail. I'm going to kind of pre-pinch this. We're going to do a short active length nail. So what we're going to do, we're going to submerge the brush. Again, I want to be able to pull down, bounce, bounce, bounce. I'm going to get myself a nice bead. I'm going to release the excess from the back end of my brush. If I go ahead and I set this to the form, I'm going to have a consistency that's not going to get away from me. Now, watch this. To get it to the side, I start from the top, connection. Start from the top, I walk it from the top. I get it even with the sidewall. That little bit of a space right here, I'm gonna walk it from the top, even. Walk it from the top, even. Now, go back over the top from that point. Get it even, walk it from the top. Even, walk it from the top. I have connection on both sides. Not only do I have connection on both sides, I have an even surface so that if I wanted to, again, let's say the customer wants a slightly tapered free edge, I'm going to be able to use the side of my brush and then use this part of the brush to kind of square it off. I can pull it forward to get the desired length. I can use the body of the brush to make it as even from side to side. And if you're looking at this from this profile, one thing you're going to notice, the lower arch comes off the growth channel dead straight. This is going to set you up so that when you file the nail into perfection, you're not going to have a hitch right there in the corner. It's not going to be tilted, right? And again, I went with just this shape. If you decided that you wanted to do more of an almond shape, then put the tip into an almond shape. If you got, and for those of you guys that are wondering, well, what if you got too much product? Let's say you pushed it on the nail and there was too much product on here. This is absolutely okay. It's not going to make any difference as long as you're not building bulk through that center of the body, okay? So once you actually have this on, what we're going to do is we're going to do an overlay. I need to make sure that we have the right consistency so that everything flows into place. Remember, right? It's not just this point of contact. If I have the finger pointed down and I have good connection and I set it down, you're never going to have lifting here because the first point of contact is where you have the best consistency. What we're trying to achieve is that same consistency all the way around. Do not do it in multiple beads. You have to be able to do it in one. That is really, really important for you guys to be able to master application without running into basically long-term problems like lifting, chipping, inconsistencies around the perimeter of the nail. So I recommend getting your brush, loading this up, lightly tapping, look at this, lightly tapping on the opposite side because we're gonna be picking up with this side. Submerge your brush, lightly tap, pull down, bounce, 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 bounce. Watch this, 1, 2, 3, around 4, I'm going to release. Now, I'm going to use the tip of my brush. I'm just going to lightly walk around the perimeter of the nail. I'm just barely touching it as the bead moves down towards this. Now, from the side and the front is where I'm going to be pulling. From the front end of the bead, you're going to notice, right? I didn't do anything. All I'm doing is setting it down, creating that shape. I'm pulling from the side and the front of the bead to blend into the tip. As it starts to set, I could apply a little bit more pressure. I don't have to do anything around the cuticle area anymore. I need to make sure that I have perfection around the perimeter of the nail, creates a natural shape arch. I'm not trying to fill this area in yet, especially for those of you guys that are going for any type of extended length. Leave this open for your third bead. So you see the little bit of line right here. This is the tip, this is the body. I have a little bit, again, of space. I need to fill in all that space right here. So what I like to do, I'll submerge my brush, I'll come down, I'll bounce, bounce, bounce. I'll just wait a couple of seconds. I place my brush backwards in between those two beads, boom, pull back. It leaves enough excess where all I have to do is walk it from side to side. I'm not gonna brush anything forward. Wipe my brush, use the body to guide everything down towards the tip to fill in all of that negative space. If I need to brush back, I have the ability to do that. If I need to kind of contour the sides, I'm going to have a great consistency, which is going to allow me to work from side to side without the product sticking to the brush. You want to be able to put it in position so that when you're molding the acrylic, right, you want to be able to mold it into a shape so that you don't have to do that much filing when you are done. Okay, so again, for those of you guys that are starting, I'm using the Greg Signature Series brush. It's a number 12. You guys, again, that are just learning, right, there is no difference. The only difference is between this and this, I had to sculpt, again, the tip. I had to do an overlay over the surface. If I'm just doing a straight overlay, right? We want a position where all the acrylic that you do, you want it to run from this position to this position in the least amount of effort. So if I was to take my brush, again, I'm going to remove it from the back end. I need to load this up. Now, for those of you guys that are working, and again, let me just get a different brush. I want to be able to show you something. Let's say you're working with a smaller brush. You can see the difference between a number 12 and a number 9. So if you guys are working with a number 9, right, if I submerge my brush, I'm going to load this up. I'm just going to barely touch the brush. This is going to give me the ability to bounce inside the surface to pick up a nice bead. I'm going to do the same thing. If I was to set this down and release, I need to make sure that I have a workability where I'm able to lightly touch around the perimeter. I'm just barely touching as the bead starts moving down. I'm going to flatten out the tip. From the front end right here, look at this, the side. If I pull from the front, it's starting to kind of maneuver into position. I wipe my brush, watch this. I can continue to work it. I'm getting it down to a position where I have a little bit of space. Well, at this point, if I use the body of the brush, I have clay-like consistency. I can put it into great shape, dip my brush, clean it. Now it's in a position where if I just kind of pulled everything through, I'm not only going to have a really, really tight cuticle area, I'm going to have a beautiful overlay that's going to be very easy for me to file into shape. It doesn't matter, again, whether you're doing this or you're doing this. It's always going to be the same. The biggest problem that a lot of beginners make when they're working, let me just go ahead and remove this from the surface so they don't have to grab another tip, right? For those of you guys that are learning to work with acrylic, I feel that a lot of beginners that don't have the right guidance, they're taught to move from this position to this position. Well, let's say you are successful at picking something up, but you don't know when to set it down. So you set it down here, right? And then you're like, oh my gosh, it's starting to move. And you start to do this patting motion. Well, you can see what ends up happening. It flares out to the side. So what you do is you do this, and then you pull and you end up getting it stuck to your brush. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know. And then you end up like just pulling it off, jamming your brush up with acrylic, and then ends up becoming a nightmare of a situation. Imagine if you don't have to worry about that. And in order for you not to worry about that, you need to start at the back end first. I'm gonna go back to my brush. Watch. Get yourself in a position where you're allowing the product to level on its own. So if you submerge your brush and you lightly tap it and you pull down and you bounce, watch this, if I count 1, 2, 3, around 4, slowly release. I'm able to use the tip of my brush just to lightly touch. It's a very light gel-like touch. Watch this. Do you see? If I just held the product down and allowed it to run, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to let the product do the work for me, right? All I'm going to do is kind of hold the sides, right? I'm in a position right now where I don't even really have to pull anything. I could just kind of walk it with the body of the brush with a light touch from side to side. Look at this. Light side to side. If I decided that I want to kind of straighten this out so that it doesn't get all over the place, what I was able to do is allow the product to move from this point to this point. And again, I didn't do anything. I'm allowing the product to do the work for me, right? I got to get that product off from the very first demo I did, but you're going to notice at this point, watch this, you want to be able to pull yourself in a position. If I'm pulling my sides, you see look how round the edges go. Look how round the cuticles are. Look at all the support that I have. If I'm looking down the barrel of the nail, I have it round. I don't have it bulky on the side. Everything is in position. I have a natural arch. This is how you're going to be able to attack the overlay so that when you get to sculpting a nail, it's the exact same thing. Let's go ahead and remove this form and get into filing. You have to learn how to apply acrylic like this. There's no magic way. There's, again, good fundamental technique that Young Nails has taught for over 25 years. It is what we have built our superior education on. It is going to take you guys to another level. Now, again, you need to make sure that when you're filing, you have to make sure that you keep your sides of your file straight. So that way, you're going to notice, I keep that side straight. I keep this side straight. So I want to be able to file all the way up the edge. You're going to notice that when I file all 3 sides, do you see how straight that ledge is? Look at this, from the top, look at that. I wasn't swiveling back and forth. I applied it in a way where if I had contact all the way on, you can see contact at that angle all the way through. I'm not bending my file all the way in. I'm able to get that dead straight. From this point here, you can see the lower arch comes out, but it slightly dips down. So how we're going to do, we're going to take our client's hand and we're going to turn it to the side. If I line the file at the lowest point parallel to the finger, contact here, watch this. If I keep contact and I continue to file until my hand file reaches, watch how perfectly straight that becomes, right? So if I turn the hand to the side, a lot of people, what they end up doing, right? They make the mistake of taking their hand file and coming at an angle like this. You cannot see what you're doing at the side. You have to physically turn the customer's hand to the side. If you turn the customer's hand to the side, like my growth channel is here. I'm trying to line this up so that it's dead straight. If I was to hold it, I'm not going to hold it in this position and try to file through. I need to hold it at the lowest point, parallel to the finger, and I keep contact, and I continue to file, and I continue to file, making contact all the way through, and then you're going to notice that I'm able to build a razor sharp lower arch. That is really, really important. This is going to separate, again, excellent work from just average. Okay, so all my sides are straight, lower arches are straight. I'm now going to switch out to my safety bit. And this is really important because I don't want to use my safety bit to try to file this into perfection. I'm using my safety bit and my electric file to remove excess from the surface of the nail so that I do the least amount of hand filing. I want to be able to look at the side profile. So here at this point, you can see I need to be able to shape the upper arch perfect. I don't need that much filing around the cuticle area. I don't need that much filing through the upper arch. As you can see, the amount of filing that I've done through the center of the nail is very minimal. I'm going to look down the barrel of the nail. You can see the thickness, how straight it is. So what we have to do, we're not going to go side to side. We're going to come towards ourselves. So if I'm coming towards myself, I'm going to be able to round off. Look at this. I'm able to round off that side. I'm able to round off those edges, make it dead even from side to side. We're trying to make the C curve as round as we can without affecting the integrity of the nail. When I'm going around the cuticle area, I'm not going side to side. I position my hand like this. I don't come from underneath. That is only when I'm applying acrylic. I need to come over the top. It's like I'm blanketing the nail. I position my thumb here. I position my pinky like it's shaking. This is going to give me the ability to work around the perimeter of the nail without slipping. I'm going to be able to come through and remove all that bulk. And then once I'm done doing that, all I have to do is come through the body and remove the excess. I'm done. I don't need any more than that, right? We want to be able to get into a position so that now all I have to do, my sides are straight, everything is straight. I'm going to break it down into 2 forms. I want to be able to go around the cuticle area with the least amount of effort so that I'm able to get it super, super tight. Then I like to break it down into 2 sections. I'll file my left side down the barrel of the nail. On the right side, I keep contact. I go up. Contact going up, let it fall. Don't pick at it like this. Go in, use the whole surface, come down. Whole entire surface. That way you cover the right side. So what we're trying to do, again, we're breaking this into 2 sections. Last but not least, what we're going to do, let's lift this up. I like to look down the client profile here. So everything is pretty straight. I'm going to adjust whether it's even from side to side. I like to use, again, my hand file. I'll rest it in between my knuckles. I'll look down the barrel of the nail and I rest it onto the surface. This way I can surf the whole entire body. I can surf the whole entire body, keeping contact with the whole entire tip. That way it's going to be perfectly even from side to side. So you're going to notice, right? Because if I wipe this off, what we're trying to accomplish is trying to get that as even as we can all the way through. You want to be able to spend the least amount of time hand filing. Imagine having to build nails and you're sitting there and going, oh my gosh, I have to file, and you finish doing one nail and then you have 9 more to go. You don't want to be able to do that. You want to be able to put yourself in a position so that you do the least amount of filing. You want to be able to put yourself in a position so that when you are done sculpting out your nail, you're going to have something, again, coming off that growth channel that is dead straight. You want something that's going to be dead even all the way through, great extensions, nice arch, nice and thin. And again, have the support necessary so that you're going to be able to do the designs that your customers desire, okay? All right, I hope this helped. Just remember that when you're putting any top coat or any type of color on the surface, make sure that you use protein bond all the way through the surface. This is going to eliminate any type of chipping, right? Even if you guys are doing color on the surface of the nail, you put a little bit of protein bond on the nail, and then this will allow you, again, to come through and apply color. A lot of people are like, after I put my gel polish on, I noticed that it's really, really, really thick. Well, it's really, really thick because you're putting a base coat on the surface. You don't need to do that. You want to be able to work with the color. You want to try to get this looking as tight as you possibly can. Get that inside the light, cure it out, second coat, top coat, and you're finished. Putting the protein bond on the surface is going to eliminate any of your top coats, your gel colors from chipping off the surface of the nail. All right. I hope this helps. Again, if you guys need any information, www.youngnails.com. If you guys need to call and talk to somebody, 1-800-777-9170, www.youngnails.com. Thank you guys for joining me in Nail School. Look forward to the next episode. We're going to be covering extreme low odor, gels, anything and everything to get your game to the next level. I appreciate your time. Thanks a million. Peace.
Subscribe to the channel now.